Now, setting up a trust is a way of protecting your assets and keeping tax down on estate duty. And contrary to general perception that owning a trust is only for the super rich, ordinary South Africans can also set up a trust. Naledi Mulifi reports.
Setting up a trust is one way of protecting your assets from creditors in case of insolvency. For example, if you own a business, you can place your house in a trust so that if you go bankrupt, your house cannot be sold. But you are not protected if you have used your trust assets to secure a loan.
The trust would be beneficial for you in your personal capacity because you might want to actually hold certain of your personal assets in the trust. So therefore, if the business were ever to experience a problem, now 9 times out of 10, the business owner will have signed personal surety for the banks, for vehicles, for bonds, or for any other credit agreements. Those unlimited sureties would then revert back to you in your personal capacity as the business owner. So therefore, as a business owner, you might want to hold in your private capacity, you may want to hold certain investments or assets in the trust, which mean that if anything were to go wrong, that those assets do not belong to you, they belong to your family trust, and therefore they cannot be touched.
Trusts are usually used to pass family assets on to future generations. It enables all children to own the asset and share the income. Many trusts are administered by a group of people called the trustees. They decide how the trust should be run and need to give consent before any asset of the trust can be disposed of.
The trust will look after the assets for those who are unable or unwilling to look after the assets themselves. And if an individual wishes to protect the assets from possibly his children or his wife from remarrying and squandering the assets on a second husband, etc., then a trust will most definitely give you that protection because the control of the assets falls under the board of trustees. So a child, for example, if they inherit a large amount of money, could quite easily squander that money, whereas if the assets were held in trust, then the trustees can look after those assets, invest them correctly, and ensure that the assets then produce an income which the trustees can then pass down to the child.
Additional properties held by a trust fund are exempt from capital gains tax. Capital gains tax of 10% is payable on a second property not held in a trust in the event of the owner's death. Assets held in a trust also do not form part of the individual's estate.
A trust is also a very unique vehicle in South African tax law because it is the only entity that owns an asset but that doesn't necessarily have to pay the tax on that asset. And that sort of goes back to how the Income Tax Act deals with how trusts must deal with income and capital gains.
Businesses registered in a trust do attract more tax. Profits are taxed at 40% a year compared to 28% by companies which aren't in a trust.
Well, the first thing that I would not do is run an actual business through a trust itself, because not only is it not tax efficient, but second of all, it defeats the purpose behind a trust.